I'm speaking with Nevin deMilliano with Prairie Storm Chasers. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Shelby?
I'm very good. So, with August coming to an end, could residents expect more storms to come in the future?
Yeah, I think for Canada, our severe storm season always kind of stretches from end of May through September. So we can still get severe weather for sure. I think some threats will start to decline at the end of August here. So the tornado threats will probably go down, but the threat of hail and severe winds still very possible.
And compared to the previous years, how would you rate the storm season so far for this year?
It kind of depends on where you were. So if you were in Calgary, it seemed like you never stopped having storms, and in some areas of the prairies, you never stopped having rain. So it really depends on where you were. Last year, I feel like I was chasing a lot more up by Lloyd, and this year I wasn't by Lloydminster at all. So that's kind of how it goes with weather. But the season isn't over yet.
What can we expect for fall coming up? Do you think it'll be like calm weather or might expect some worse weather?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell. For when we're storm chasing, we can only kind of tell exactly where storms are going to be about 2 days in advance. So if the systems line up and the weather's right, you can still get severe weather anywhere on the prairies. But that could be one person on one side of Lloydminster and someone just on the other side that gets it. So it's very variable. So it's hard to tell.
And in your opinion, do you think tornadoes could be a big possibility still for residents to expect?
I'd like to never say never, but definitely, as we've seen trends over the past number of years, the number of tornadoes definitely go down in August. So it's definitely not as big of a threat, but it's still there.
And I actually wanted to bring up the Manitoba tornado that killed two people. Can you kind of give some insight on how destructive that storm really was?
Yeah, a couple days before, we were even keeping an eye on that forecast, and one of our team members of the Prairie Storm Chasers, Sean Chauffeur, lives kind of in that area, so he was chasing that day. But it's not the kind of day that wanted it to pan out that way. We didn't think it was going to pan out that way. It started the day, and we knew that there was a severe threat, but we didn't really expect tornadoes. So the fact that there was one very devastating tornado just goes to show how imperfect the science of kind of predicting these storms really is. I think there's a lot of credit to the meteorologists who warned that storm and also the storm chasers who were reporting on it, because that storm kind of initiated and did all its damage and even took two lives and then even kind of disappeared about an hour later. It was amazing how that works. So that whole storm was kind of gone. So you always got to be aware. And I think Sean highlighted that in some of his chases and his reports. So we hope that those got out to the right people. But unfortunately, weather, you can't control everything.
Yeah. And can you kind of give us a general understanding of what storm chasing is all about? Like, what would you say you do on a daily basis for your job?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing for our team is being able to target these storms. So looking at weather models, poring over data like that, and being in the right place at the right time. Obviously, when we're out seeing these storms, we're kind of the only ones with live eyes on them. And we know that that's very important to the officials who are warning the people in the path of these storms. So we relay all that information to Environment Canada or local meteorologists through social media and through phone calls to make sure that those people are warned in advance and can take shelter.
Hmm. And in your experience so far with being with Prairie Storm Chasers, what is probably the worst storm or worst tornado kind of you've ever experienced and chased?
Hmm. That's I think it's different for all of us on the team because we've all kind of chased different tornadoes. But the one thing that's consistent is no storm is alike. Sometimes tornado is not the scariest threat that's out there. It's either extreme wind can be just as damaging, or even lightning. We can't predict where a lightning bolt's going to strike, and if we're close to a storm, that can be the biggest threat for us. So some of these storms in the States in Tornado Alley are obviously on another level. I think that would be what everyone says on our team. For me, some of the scariest storms I've been haven't produced tornadoes. So just being in the core of some of these severe storms on the prairies can be very damaging to vehicles and property.
And is there anything else you'd like to add for residents to know about, especially during storm season?
Yeah, I think anytime you're working outside or camping, I think it's important to know what you should do if you do come across a big storm like this or a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning. And I think really having a way of getting those warnings is the number one thing. Don't just rely on your cell phone. Have other ways of getting them, whether that's radio or like weather radio. And also just know what to do. So camping, to me, you're so exposed, and just knowing that you shouldn't stay in your trailer, or if you're driving on the highway and the storm's coming, maybe you shouldn't keep driving into it, or things like that. Like if you're stuck in a situation where the tornado is actually going to hit you, like it's better to be in a ditch or a low-lying area away from trees and not in your vehicle. So things like that, I think, are really important. And if you're camping, a tent is not a great place if you're surrounded by trees and there's a big storm about to come and push all those trees down, right? So finding shelter and knowing what to do in those situations, very important on the prairies.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Nevin, and giving us some insight on the storm season so far.
Thank you.